I never truly believed in ghosts, until one terrifying night at Blackwood Cemetery changed my mind forever. It was late October, a time when the veil between the living and the dead is said to be at its thinnest. My friends and I had heard the legends of Blackwood Cemetery since childhood. The townspeople spoke in hushed tones about the eerie, whispering voices heard at night, the shadowy figures seen moving between the headstones, and the unshakable feeling of being watched. I dismissed the stories as superstition until we decided to test the rumors ourselves. We arrived at the cemetery just before midnight. The iron gates creaked as we pushed them open, revealing a vast, fog-covered graveyard. Towering oak trees loomed overhead, their twisted branches casting eerie shadows. The air was unnaturally cold, and an overwhelming silence hung over the place. No wind, no insects, no distant sounds of the town. I was the first to step forward, my flashlight cutting through the mist. As we wandered deeper into the graveyard, I felt something shift in the atmosphere. The hairs on my arms stood on end, as if unseen eyes were watching. Then it started. A whisper, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. Then another, and another. The voices grew in number, surrounding us from every direction. My friends and I exchanged nervous glances. I turned slowly, expecting to see someone standing behind me. But the graveyard was empty. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. "Yeah," one of my friends muttered, his face pale. The whispers grew louder, overlapping into a chorus of unintelligible murmurs. But amidst the whispers, I caught something distinct. My own name. Michael. My stomach twisted. My flashlight flickered. And for a split second, I saw something. A tall, shadowy figure standing just beyond the headstones. It had no face, just a dark mass with hollow, watching eyes. Panic surged through me. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted toward the gate. But just before I crossed the threshold, something cold brushed against my neck. A chilling, almost skeletal touch. And then, a voice, clear, male, right in my ear. "You shouldn't have come." I haven't been back to Blackwood Cemetery since, but sometimes, late at night, when my room is dark and silent, I swear I still hear that whisper. Of all the haunted places I've investigated, Oak Hill Cemetery remains one of the most chilling. Located on the outskirts of an old town, the cemetery had a long, haunted history. But one legend stood out: the tale of the woman in white, a ghostly figure who roamed the graves, mourning something only she remembered. Some said she was the spirit of a woman buried alive. Others claimed she was searching for a lost child. But nearly everyone who had encountered her spoke of an unbearable sadness that lingered in the air whenever she appeared. I arrived at Oak Hill on a cold October night, accompanied by my paranormal research team. We set up cameras, EVP recorders, and thermal sensors, preparing for a long night of investigation. At around 2 a.m., I wandered deeper into the cemetery. A thick mist rolled in, clinging low to the ground. That's when I saw her. A pale woman in a flowing white gown stood near an ancient mausoleum. Her head was bowed slightly, her shoulders trembling. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. She looked so real, but something was wrong. Her feet weren't touching the ground. Slowly, I raised my camera and snapped a photo. The moment the flash went off, she lifted her head. Her eyes were empty, hollow. Black pits of sorrow and despair. A sudden gust of freezing wind hit me, knocking the breath from my lungs. My equipment went haywire. The temperature plummeted. Our radio scanners crackled, and a low, distorted voice murmured through the EVP recorder. Then she moved toward me. Not walked, glided. I wanted to run, but my legs felt frozen in place. She raised a skeletal hand, reaching for me. Just as her fingers nearly grazed my chest, she vanished into thin air. Later, when reviewing our footage, we found something terrifying. In the last frame of the photo I had taken, just before she disappeared, her face had twisted into something monstrous, her mouth open in a silent scream. We left Oak Hill Cemetery before dawn, and I never went back. I was 12 years old the first time I saw something I couldn't explain. In my town, there was a local legend. If you were brave enough, you had to visit Maplewood Cemetery on Halloween night and touch the oldest grave. That night, my friends dared me to do it alone. The cemetery was eerily silent, the old headstones barely visible in the dim moonlight. I made my way to the oldest tombstone, covered in thick moss, dated 1823. My heart pounded as I reached out and placed my fingers against the cold, rough stone. For a moment, nothing happened. I sighed in relief. Then I felt it. A cold, bony grip wrapped around my ankle. I screamed, looking down. A skeletal hand was emerging from the dirt, its decayed fingers tightening around my leg. I thrashed, trying to break free, but the grip was inhumanly strong. My friends ran toward me, their faces twisted in horror. Then, the ground beneath me began to cave in. I felt myself being pulled down. I kicked frantically. Just as my friends grabbed my arms, the hand loosened, then sank back into the ground, leaving behind only a deep, gaping hole. The next day, I returned with my parents. The grave looked undisturbed, as if nothing had happened. But to this day, I still feel it. The icy fingers, the pull toward the earth. And sometimes, in my darkest nightmares, I see it again. That rotting hand, waiting just beneath the surface. Graveyards are meant to be places of rest, but some souls refuse to stay buried. The chilling encounters you just heard prove that sometimes the dead don't stay silent, and they don't stay underground. But now we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something unexplainable in a cemetery? A whisper when no one was there? A shadow moving between the graves? Or maybe something even darker? Share your true haunted stories in the comments below. Who knows? Your story might just be featured in a future video. And if you love terrifying true horror stories, don't forget to like this video to keep the scares coming. Subscribe for more spine-chilling tales every week. And share this video with your bravest friends, if they dare. Because remember, the next time you walk through a graveyard at night, you might not be alone. Stay haunted, stay curious. See you in the next nightmare.